pointing her way to fame. Silver and gold in the sunlight blaze, and romance lies in her name. Proudly, too, all our lives through, we'll go singing, singing of you, singing of Idaho.
Saturday, November 12, 2022, started off like any other Saturday in Moscow,
so
Idaho.
many other girls in your house to help you with school, like have your back if you have problems.
A week earlier, November 6th, that was Parents Weekend, where your parents come to town and they get to hang out with you and your friends, go to your sororities or fraternities, get to meet other parents, and that's what occurred the weekend before the murders. The University of Idaho is right around 25 to 30,000 students, mostly those living on campus in some way. Dorms your first year or two, and then your off-campus housing, which is pretty much, though, right there. Prior to getting to the University of Idaho, Kaylee and Madison grew up together. They were like sisters, very close, never went too far without the other. So their journey didn't just start at the University of Idaho. It began many years before that, growing up as lifelong childhood best friends.
It's really exciting because we're going to have so many adventures. I'm super excited to be able to decorate, to go to my classes, and just to learn, because that's really the point of coming up here.
I'm excited to move in.
Just men, Kaylee, Madison, and Xana, no different. They got to enjoy the dorm life, meeting new people. All four of the Idaho4 murdered students, they went Greek. All of them belonging to a sorority or, in Ethan's case, a fraternity. When you go away to school, you meet so many new people, you cross paths with so many people that you don't know, and you never know who could possibly be watching you more so than you take notice of. And was that the case of one of the 4 slain students? Before you know it, your first year of college is pretty much over, and you've taken that first year to get all of your core requirements hopefully taken care of or shortly thereafter in your sophomore season. After your freshman year, you basically get to pick who you want to live with, as the university kind of did that for you when they picked your roommate. But now you have your feet wet, you've made your friends, and now you have to make a decision on, are you going to move off of campus and who are you going to live with? And that's actually a very, very big decision, because everybody knows how hard it is to get along with somebody in a living environment versus just being friends with them and being able to go separate ways at night. Xana, Kaylee, Madison, and 2 other girls decided that they found themselves a home, and it was going to be 1122 King Road. Part of the Greek row section of housing. 6 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms on each level. It's a 3-level house. So 6 total bedrooms, 3 total bathrooms, a bathroom on each level, washer, dryer, connect. And this is the house that they chose. Each person would have their own bedroom, just like probably any other college student. When you're choosing your house and your roommates, you either draw straws to see who picks rooms first, or depending on the layout of the house, people would charge more money for certain rooms. I'm sure that was all sorted out, but these girls picked each other to live with, and this was the home that they picked. This home was labeled as a so-called party hangout house, where friends would gather before Saturday games, late nights, things like that. When I pulled some history on the house and who it belonged to, it is registered in an LLC, and I believe there are a couple of owners or partners with that LLC. But something that was interesting is that none of the victims nor the 2 surviving roommates were listed. Okay, so everybody's saying that there is an issue, so go back, come back in, and I will replay it from the beginning. Here you go.
winning her way to fame. Silver and gold in the sunlight blaze, and romance lies in her name. Proudly, too, all our lives through, we'll go singing, singing of you, singing of Idaho.
Saturday, November 12, 2022, started off like any other Saturday in Moscow,
So many
Idaho.
other girls in your house to help you with school, like have your back if you have problems.
A week earlier, November 6th, that was Parents' Weekend, where your parents come to town and they get to hang out with you and your friends, go to your sororities or fraternities, get to meet other parents, and that's what occurred the weekend before the murders. The University of Idaho is right around 25 to 30,000 students, mostly those living on campus in some way. Dorms your first year or two, and then your off-campus housing, which is pretty much, though, right there. Prior to getting to the University of Idaho, Kaylee and Madison grew up together. They were like sisters, very close, never went too far without the other. So their journey didn't just start at the University of Idaho. It began many years before that, growing up as lifelong childhood best friends.
Really exciting because we're going to have so many adventures. I'm super excited to be able to decorate, to go to my classes, and just to learn, because that's really the point of coming up here.
I'm excited to move in.
Just like every other freshman, Kaylee, Madison, and Xana, no different. They got to enjoy the dorm life, meeting new people. All four of the Idaho4 murdered students, they went Greek. All of them belonging to a sorority or, in Ethan's case, a fraternity. When you go away to school, you meet so many new people, you cross paths with so many people that you don't know, and you never know who could possibly be watching you more so than you take notice of. And was that the case of one of the 4 slain students? Before you know it, your first year of college is pretty much over, and you've taken that first year to get all of your core requirements hopefully taken care of or shortly thereafter in your sophomore season. After your freshman year, you basically get to pick who you want to live with, as the university kind of did that for you when they picked your roommate. But now you have your feet wet, you've made your friends, and now you have to make a decision on, are you going to move off of campus and who are you going to live with? And that's actually a very, very big decision, because everybody knows how hard it is to get along with somebody in a living environment versus just being friends with them and being able to go separate ways at night. Xana, Kaylee, Madison, and 2 other girls decided that they found themselves a home, and it was going to be 1122 King Road, part of the Greek row section of housing. 6 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms on each level. It's a 3-level house, so 6 total bedrooms, 3 total bathrooms, a bathroom on each level, washer, dryer, connect, and this is the house that they chose. Each person would have their own bedroom, just like probably any other college student. When you're choosing your house and your roommates, you either draw straws to see who picks rooms first, or depending on the layout of the house, people would charge more money for certain rooms. I'm sure that was all sorted out, but these girls picked each other to live with, and this was the home that they picked. This home was labeled as a so-called party hangout house, where friends would gather before Saturday games, late nights, things like that. When I pulled some history on the house and who it belonged to, it is registered in an LLC, and I believe there are a couple of owners or partners with that LLC. But something that was interesting is that none of the victims nor the 2 surviving roommates were listed as being, even tenants. It's not public information that they're listing this address as their permanent address. So I'm not sure if they ever changed it with the post office in terms of getting their mail, and then it was just sent home in college. People could just leave their address as their parents' address, but nobody from this household had 1122 King Road as their permanent address ever.
Students, clearly very close friends. Kaylee Goncaves was a 21-year-old senior from Rathdrum who graduated from Lake City High, majoring in general studies in the College of Letters, Arts, and Social Sciences. The second victim and Lake City High graduate, Madison Mogen, was 21 years old. She was a senior from Coeur d'Alene also, majoring in marketing and in the College of Business and Economics. These two lifelong childhood friends. Coeur d'Alene schools put out a statement today reading in part, "The loss of our graduates, Kaylee and Madison, is heartbreaking. We joined the University of Idaho in mourning the tragic loss of all 4 students." Ethan Chapin was a 20-year-old freshman, a member of the Sigma Chi fraternity. He was majoring in recreation, sport, and tourism management in the College of Education, Health, and Human Sciences. Originally from Mount Vernon, Washington, growing up, his family spent time at Priest Lake. Xana Kernodle, a 20-year-old junior from Post Falls, was majoring in marketing in the College of Business and Economics and a member of the Pi Beta Phi sorority. Xana posted a photo to social media just 2 weeks ago, wishing Ethan a happy birthday, a caption including, "Life is so much better with you in it. Love you." Mad Greek, a restaurant in the heart of downtown Moscow, shared this tweet today. They said in part, "Maddie and Xana have been servers here for several years and brought so much joy to our restaurant and all those they encountered. Mad Greek has closed their doors for the day to process and grieve the loss of these students." This is a story that we're going to be following very closely, and as we learn more, we'll keep you up to date.
Ethan is a 20-year-old freshman. Have they kept you guys up to date, though? Think about it. What has mainstream media been doing? They've been pushing a narrative. Mainstream media said, and the local news would say, we're going to keep you up to date. It has been how many months? All right, we are approaching 6 months until a trial, and we don't hear anything. The truth is that Bryan Kohberger, who is the accused in this case, says, I want a public trial. That means the docket. I want everything public. Please put it out there. And nobody, nowhere in mainstream media seems to give a shit. That statement is very interesting to me. From this statement, if it is true, then I would like to know what Ethan was doing his past 2 years prior to becoming a freshman this year. Also, where was Ethan living? Was he living in the dorms at this time? Did he have a roommate? But what was Ethan doing 2 years before entering his freshman year this past fall? Now remember, Ethan is a triplet. So what was the other 2 siblings doing? Did they enter as freshmen this past year as well? Or were they at the University of Idaho for their past 2 years? This case for me is saturated with misinformation, and it is a goal of mine always to make sure that my channel focuses on the facts and weeding out those rumors. I would like to know as well as what year and month all of these roommates signed their lease agreement with the owners of 1122 King Row.
Tonight in the chilling homicide investigation, 4 college students found dead. The photo they took together just hours before they died. Police say it was a targeted attack near the University of Idaho. Here's ABC's Kana Whitworth.
Tonight, police say 4 college students killed near the University of Idaho were victims of an isolated, targeted attack with an edged weapon like a knife, and the suspect is still at large. The deaths shattering the college town of Moscow, Idaho.
We're all feeling really empty right now.
The horror unfolding early Sunday inside this apartment across the street from campus.
The event itself actually happened in the middle of the night, 3 or 4 in the morning.
Hours later, police finding the bodies of 3 women and a man after responding to a 911 call.
The police indicated that the nature of the crime was such that It was directed and very focused, and therefore not a threat to anyone else in the city.
But tonight, families are broken. The mother of Ethan Chapman telling ABC News her son and his friends were first discovered by a classmate. One of Ethan's brothers saying, "We are triplets, and it's hard to imagine life without him." The four friends were all members of Greek life on campus, seen here in a photo posted by Kaylee Goncaves just hours before their deaths.
She was my, she was my sorority big sister. I'm gonna miss her a lot.
Investigators right now are working to piece together a timeline. Meanwhile, they're trying to assure everybody in the community that they are safe. But one instructor at the university telling us that the lack of details from police has a lot of people on edge right now. David, authorities have yet to publicly identify a suspect.
What professor was saying this? What professor has said that, yeah, we have some problems here?
All right, Kana Whitworth reporting tonight. Kana, thank you.
Idaho authorities say they are, quote, making progress, unquote, in the investigation into the murders of 4 University of Idaho students, but they're still not providing many details. Police told CNN today that they have interviewed more than 90 people and received at least 700 leads. Investigators also said they found a dog at the home where the students were killed. Of Idaho students, but they're still not providing many details. Police told CNN today that they have interviewed more than 90 people and received at least 700 leads. Investigators also said they found a dog at the home where the students were killed. The dog, who is seen here with one of the victims, was found unharmed. But at this hour, there's still no suspect in custody and more questions than answers. CNN's Natasha Chen took a look at the police response. This is her report.
The incomplete and sometimes contradictory information came in the first days of the investigation.
We believe this was an isolated, targeted attack on our victims.
Those words echoed in the press, perhaps leaving the impression that the police knew something that should make the public less worried. But some residents and neighbors near the crime scene were not comforted by the terms targeted and isolated.
At first, I thought that they actually had something going, so you think that makes sense, like, oh, it's targeted, and you wait to see, you know, what they say, but now they've said nothing and that they know nothing. So how can you say it's targeted?
Then the local mayor went further, telling the New York Times it could have been, quote, a crime of passion, later clarifying that was just one possibility.
They don't want people to panic. And yet, unless you have the evidence that you are willing to share with the public and be transparent about how the investigation is going, these words are completely giving false confidence.
But
exactly, false confidence. Exactly how this investigation started, where this investigation went, and literally we are at a suppression hearing that is next week, and we have a guy that is behind bars and through his attorneys are begging and have been begging for this to be public. Everything needs to be public. I cannot have any of this not seen by the public because my rights have been violated. All of our rights have been violated. Consumers using different things, their rights are being violated every day. And whether or not at the end of the day, I'm not talking about innocence, I'm not talking about guilt, but this man has the right to a fair trial. This man has the right to be public, and it is our right as Americans to see it as well, especially when we're talking about the possibility of corruption.
police say they can't share their entire case for fear of compromising the investigation.
You can't just put that out into the public's eye. It would impede the investigation, and ultimately it might impede justice at the very end of this.
But with no suspect identified, many students packed up and left town.
There's no perp caught or anything, so it's definitely uneasy on campus right now.
By day 4, police recognized their assurances of public safety weren't resonating as residents fixated on the fact a killer was not caught. Police Chief James Fry went before the cameras.
We cannot say that there's no threat to the community.
Still calling the crime targeted.
He had to literally read off a piece of paper. When you want to talk about confidence, okay, you're barely making eye contact when you're speaking. None of this is lost on me. I want it to not be lost on rest of America. Because we have a new motion that dropped today, and this is going to conclude my plea to mainstream media to do their job. Do your job as investigative journalists, that you label yourselves as investigative journalists. Do your job. And your job is to not push a narrative. Your job is to be impartial, fair, and most importantly, serving to the public. And the public wants the facts, not your narrative, mainstream media. We just want the documents. Go get the documents. Get your asses in that courtroom. Get your asses outside of that courtroom. It is not about the fact that there's a gag order on this case. Eliminate the rumors. Go off the docket and push for this to be all public. Just like the defendant is asking. He's not asking for any other reason than Richard Allen's attorneys asking us to do the same thing back then. Just because this defendant is not a blue-eyed, blonde-haired girl, all right? You are constitutionally innocent until proven guilty. Do your job, mainstream media.
But pulling back on assurances there was no public threat and pledging to release more.
I probably should have been standing here a day or so ago, but I'm here now.
Between 2016 and
But why weren't you there a day or so ago? Because the murders were on November 13th, and you didn't get out there in front of anybody until November 16th. Because you didn't know anything, right? But you couldn't even tell your community. You have a campus of how many kids, and you don't think about this. It's one thing not to tell a city, but you have kids out there. You have kids with no parents out there. And guess what? They just sat and didn't do anything for how many days? That's unfucking believable when you really think about it.
2021, there were no murders in Moscow. So when the quadruple homicide stunned this town, the 36-person police force was pressed into unprecedented action. With no full-time communication staff.
The messaging was a little bit off.
Idaho State Police were brought in to assist with public messaging.
And really put out, hopefully, the best information we can.
But the rumor mill has been hard to control. A report of a man loitering at a food truck near two of the victims was knocked down by police, who later said they eliminated the man as a suspect. Reports that someone's pet dog was, quote, skinned 3 weeks before the killings are also believed to be unrelated. Meanwhile, police are trying to protect the integrity of the investigation.
If you flood the public with information of everything that's going on, then stories might start emerging.
Stories are already emerging. Rumors are emerging.
Yeah, unfortunately, rumors are out there. People want answers. A lot of times, or all the time on TV, these are solved within 60 minutes. There's an appetite to make sure these are done. And
Seriously?
we totally respect that, and we will put out as much information as we can, as soon as we can.
It wasn't an appetite of anything being solved as soon as we can. It was an appetite for the people to know that they were safe. They wanted to know that they were safe. That's all people were wanting to know in Moscow, Idaho, is that they were safe. Because guess what? If you arrested Bryan Kohberger in this case, then that means your whole fucking community was not safe. And you lied to them and said that this was an isolated, targeted attack with zero proof of that. Zero proof of that. And whether or not Idaho wants to hide behind and act like that didn't happen, your leaders of that community in the law enforcement division of life lied to you and told you that you were safe because it was an isolated, targeted attack. And then the families took offense to the fact that they said it was an isolated, targeted attack because it's like, wait, what did my kid do to be targeted? You're not going to put that, negative mark on my kid type of attitude. How does a kid going out at night, okay, doing everything right, according to the family is what they said, and then you went out in pairs, you had a private driver, they took you home, you get to your house, and you go to sleep. How was my kid targeted? How was this isolated?
Some victims' families have expressed frustration with a lack of information.
Together, we want to extend gratitude to the following.
This week, the family of Ethan Chapin acknowledged answers and justice can only come now from police.
The Moscow Police Department, who now carry the burden every day, not only for us, but for all of the impacted families.
Everybody wants to say that the Chapin family and other families that weren't being quote unquote vocal or weren't like being. Listen to what she just said right there. The Moscow Police Department carries the burden. That's the only person right there that I've ever heard say something that's actually like, yep, they have the burden, just like the state has the burden. And right now, Bryan Kohberger is constitutionally innocent. And nowhere in America can you find anybody reporting on the facts. And the facts are that this man has filed so many motions to suppress off of violations of our constitutional rights. It's disgusting. And for you not to be covering it as holy shit, open up your fucking eyes. That's the type of coverage that what Kohberger's defense team has alluded to. And the question is why? Why? Normally, your defendants are asking for things to be sealed. This defendant, every step of the way, has asked for this shit to be public. For this to be public. Why? That is the complete opposite of what defendants in his situation are normally doing if you are so guilty. You can say it's a tactic, you can say this, but that would be speculation. How about you read the material? How about somebody sift through the material and see the cases that they're citing? And somebody start covering it in mainstream media with some unbiased reporting. Here we go. Here's the drop. These are your documents. Defendant motions to unseal the IGG suppression briefing and hearing. So we want the briefing to be unsealed as well as the hearing. We're making sure that it's on record by Bryan Kohberger asking for this. Comes now Bryan C. Kohberger by and through his attorneys of record and hereby moves this honorable court for an order to unseal the investigative genetic genealogy, also referred to as genetic information or IGG, suppression briefing, and related hearing. Because they're making it known, just in case it wasn't already known, that we want this all to, like that January 23rd, we're making sure that we want this to be an open event. The related briefs are the memorandum in support for motions to suppress not only the genetic information with attached exhibits filed under seal. So it's the exhibits as well. Sealed objection to defendant's motion to suppress with those exhibits filed under seal, and then their reply to state's objection to defendant's motion to suppress and memorandum in support, as well as the exhibits. So this is the first time that we're seeing these words, which are, we want those exhibits out there. People out there are going to say, oh, the defendant has asked for things to be sealed. No, they were merely stipulating to things. So let's not get that twisted. And in this document, they mention that. So this is procedural history. I think someone's listening to me, factual background, but procedural history. Love it. Love it. Hell yeah. Way to label that better. Mr. Kohberger filed his first motion to compel IGG discovery on June 22nd, 2023. Remember, that was after the state shafted him on his preliminary hearing. The hearing on that matter was public and involved the testimony of several expert witnesses. The court ordered the production of records in camera and under seal. Mr. Kohberger filed a second motion to compel IGG discovery on April 15th, 2024. Over the objection of Mr. Kohberger, again here, over the objection, so he was objecting to it not being public, so over the objection of Mr. Kohberger, the court required that portion of that May 30th, 2024 hearing on the second motion to compel IGG discovery be closed. So there was like a morning session, afternoon session. That was when Payne and Cyree testified. So that part was public, but the IGG stuff was closed. Again, over the objection. So that means the over objection means Mr. Kohberger was objecting to it being sealed. The court again ordered the production of records under seal. The court's concerns were the privacy rights of the names of individuals identified in Mr. Kohberger's family tree. At the first and second motion to compel IGG discovery, Mr. Kohberger argued that he would be filing a motion to suppress. We've all been waiting for this. We have all been waiting for this motion to suppress the IGG. Now we're there. Next up, he asked the court to allow the pleadings and hearing be public. On May 20th, 2024, the court indicated it would take the matter after the suppression pleadings were filed. So we're got to see what, like he said, hey, I'm going to be filing. Okay. Then, hey, this is when Judge was still involved. And on May 20, 2024, the court indicated it would take the matter up after the suppression pleadings were filed. In the interim, though, we've had a venue change, and this case is now before a new judge. The motion to suppress, RE, the genetic information, was filed on November 14th, 2024, and is now fully briefed. That means we got our motion out there, then the state gave their objection, we did our reply, because you have so many days to do each, and now we're to the point that this has been fully briefed. So then we went ahead and we filed based on what everything, procedural history here, that we told you that we were going to do this, and now we're doing it. And so pursuant to court direction, again, pursuant to court direction, the parties stipulated. The only reason there was a stipulated agreement here is because pursuant to the court direction, the parties stipulated to file all IGG suppression pleadings under seal. No names of the extended family tree are discussed in the briefing. So they're saying there's no reason to not have it. You know, we did it per the direction, but now guess what? We're filing this motion because there's a problem. Mr. Kohberger wants it to be available and open because there's no reason or case law that says that it has to be sealed. And we're going to get to that, which is where the argument's going to come into. So the most important thing is that, hey, there's no names of the extended family tree are discussed in the briefing. The matter is set for a hearing on January 23rd and 24th. Mr. Kohberger requests that the briefing be unsealed and the hearing take place in an open court. Now, argument. Due to national and international attention to this case, and in the interest of protecting Mr. Kohberger's right to a fair trial, many pleadings in this case have been sealed appropriately pursuant to Idaho Administrative Rule 32, saying that you have had grounds, the court has had grounds to do those things. Mr. Kohberger has a right to a public trial, and sealing a suppression hearing is a clear violation of this right to a public trial. See Weaver versus Massachusetts and see Whaler versus Georgia. Motion to suppress to protect privacy of witnesses was error, requiring remand for so that's why they're citing the Georgia case there to say, yeah, they sealed it, but it was an error, and it was ruled as such. So requiring remand for new public hearing, and like we don't want to have to do all that, you know. Then they said another case, which is State versus Ingram, and moving on. In addition to Mr. Kohberger's right to a public trial, the public has a First Amendment right to know what goes on in its courts. And if I'm a parent of any one of these victims, I want to see this. I want to know this. I want to see this. And the families are the public, okay? The families are the public. So Idaho Code 74-104-1B recognizes that records contained in court files of judicial proceedings may be exempt from disclosure under rules promulgated by the Idaho Supreme Court. The Idaho Supreme Court adopted ICAR 32 to define when public access to judicial records may be denied, and then citing State v. Doe. When the court is considering whether to seal the record, Rule 32I directs the court to consider the traditional legal concepts in the law of the right to a fair trial. Also invasion of privacy, also defamation, and invasion of proprietary business records, as well as common sense respect for shielding highly intimate material about a person's. Basically, none of that is there with this, with Mr. Kohberger asking for this to be unsealed and for this to be a public hearing. We're not going to have this not be a public hearing so that we can protect the FBI and the motherfucking Moscow Police Department and the motherfucking Idaho State fucking Police. We're not going, we have an interest in corruption if it is there. We also have an interest in people violating our rights. It's not just Bryan Kohberger's rights. It is our rights. Fuck. I have an interest in this. And if you people don't have an interest in this, I'm telling you, I have no idea why you live in America. Because living in America is the greatest place to live because we actually have motherfucking rights. It's like the best thing in the world. Literally. I love it. I love it. I love it. So, they cite all of this because none of this exists. There is no reasons to seal this. And a reason to seal it is not to protect the FBI and their practices, the Idaho State Police and their practices, and the Moscow Police Department and their practices. None of those constitute a reason to protect and seal a hearing. And you're just not going to do that. And so I remember Steve Gonsalves said, put it all out there. We want to see the evidence. We want to see everything. I believe that he wholeheartedly means that. And just as pissed off as I am right now, I guarantee you he's as pissed off too. Like, what do you mean? Just put it out there. Who cares? He's asking for it to be out there. Put it out there. And actually, Teresa B., don't forget the university. You're damn right. We're going to put the university in there. We, the people, have an interest. We do. That is fact. That is not like, it's not like this, oh, well, we don't have a right to know. Actually, we do. We do have a right to know. We do, because we have an interest in what is going on in our public courts. And the defendant wants it out there. And guess what? That's usually never the case. Never the case. But here, in this situation, people want to say, oh, he wants it out there for, and then they make up all these reasons that it's propaganda, that it's the defense doing this and putting on a show. Fuck you, that's speculatory. Stop assuming. Who cares? Even if that's what you're assuming. He has the right to have this be a public spectacle if he wanted to. Just like what's his name had it. Darren Brooks or whatever the fuck that man's name was that ran his car all through the fucking town. Talk about a waste of money, right? But hell, Law and Order was down there video recording that shit and we were live streaming the fuck out of that, right? Darren Brooks, Wisconsin. Unbelievable. Unbelievable that I should ever even have to argue this or that anybody should have to argue this. But what's unbelievable is that nobody is talking about it. Like, get out of here, man. Little down, like wild shit. Wild. Moving on. So here, the way in which the IgG material was accessed and used is a matter warranting public disclosure and should not be shielded from public's right to know. FOIA, baby, public's right to know. This matter is of utmost importance to Mr. Kohberger's right to a public hearing. Holding the hearing in open court will not prejudice the parties, and this should be held in open court, period. Suppression hearings are held in open court. Why would this hearing not be held in open court? The issues raised are legal issues. Legal issues. We have legal issues here. And cases with similar issues are being decided in other states. The issues raised in Mr. Kohberger's suppression motion are those that were discussed in the public hearing on the first motion to compel. This is nothing new. We're finally getting to that chapter where it's coming to a close, and you think that you're going to seal off the end of the book so that nobody knows what happens? Additionally, the way in which IgG occurred in this case has been made public in other, we're going to get to that footer here in a second, in other cases. But that footer is really, really important because that footer right here says aspects of the IgG investigation in this case have already been leaked thanks to Heather Tall Murphy, how police actually cracked the Idaho killings case. And it's available right here if you click on that link. Please see State vs. Hartman. And there's a link there as well. And that has everything to do with how the police used and tracked down the Golden State Killer. So the conclusion is Mr. Kohberger has a right to a public trial, and the public has a right to know how genetic information was used in this case. Neither the state nor Mr. Kohberger will be prejudiced by unsealing the briefing and holding the IgG hearing in open court. The pleadings and hearing should be unsealed. And there's our girl. Woohoo! Elisa, baby. Someone buy that woman a steak dinner. Thank you so much. We have K. Smith. Go! I'll take that. There is a threat, in my opinion, says Red Riding Hood 721. Member for 4 months. Thank you for the membership. Bunny Murphy, member for 6 months. Justice Seeker, Smart Cookie, Total Babe. We thank you, Lana. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Oh, Moonvale says 5 of you guys are going to turn green with me. I've been green for how long now, Moonvale? Long time. And then Jennifer, thank you so much for the super sticker. At first, I thought that said Jennifer Drake. If you know, you know. So now, after this lovely filing, which was done on 1/13, then on January 15th, Mr. Hipla, Judge Hipla, he said on January 21st,
at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, the court will hold a closed/sealed hearing by remote video means to 1, hear the defense motion to unseal materials related to its request to suppress evidence stemming from the use of IgG. So that basically, when everybody wants to say, like, why are they having this private closed hearing? Well, Judge Hippler is having a closed hearing to hear the motion that they just filed. Okay. It didn't ask to have a hearing, just so we're clear. But normally at the end here, it says, would like to be heard on blah, blah, blah. That wasn't here. So Judge Hippler is having his own. We're going to have a closed hearing on January 21st to address your motion. To address your motion. Again, 1, to hear the defense motion to unseal materials related to its request to suppress evidence stemming from the use of IgG. I'm curious as to why we don't have a hearing every time somebody files like this motion. I mean, so I guess we're going to have a hearing. Also, he filed this and gave this order. Like, there wasn't even an objection. Okay. Like, normally what would happen here is you're going to give so much time for the state to object. Now, this is my issue, is that he just jumps right in before the state can say anything. Okay. He jumps right in and makes, here we go. We're going to have this, we're going to have a hearing. So how does the state feel about this? What if the state has no problems with this? So think about that. Before the state can even lodge an objection or say anything, Hippler files this notice of hearing and order regarding January 21st, 2025 hearing. And he calls it a notice that, hey, we're going to have this hearing. Think about that. Normally what happens here, if the state doesn't object to it, okay, then I guess we're going to have this open hearing. You know what I mean? The state didn't even respond. The state didn't even have a chance to respond to this. Think about that. Just think about it. It's like, talk about someone just like hijacking this. All right. So we don't even know how the state feels. But was that by design? When you want to talk about corruption, man, it looks like Judge Hippler just saved the state from even answering it. Unless they filed and it's sealed right now, so we don't know what their answer is. I haven't seen it, but where's the state's? Maybe that's just not uploaded yet. Maybe, for all I know, the state could have. I'm saying that the docket doesn't show it. The docket shows it on January 15th. So could the state have responded on the 13th? Sure. Or the 14th? Sure. Possibly on the 15th before noon. Absolutely. Okay. But it needs to be said that right now we are without the state objecting that I have in my hands. So why aren't we waiting for the state to respond? And again, they could have, but what it looks like right now is, this is what we have. So Judge Hippler says, we're sealing and we're going to have a Zoom hearing on the 21st. Okay. So on the 21st at 10 a.m., which is noon Eastern Standard, we're going to have a hearing so that the defense, their motion to unseal this material related to its request to suppress evidence stemming from the use of IgG, DNA, and to consider, and we're going to consider what portions, if any, what are you talking about, Hippler? What do you mean, if any? This is a public hearing, and you think you're going to gall us? The fuck out of here. You're not going to gall anybody. And when I say gall us, that's from the Indiana Judge Gall. So consider what portions, if any, and under what circumstances should the various motions set to be heard on January 23rd and 24th be open to the public, either live and or by video. So think about that. So what if Ann Taylor would have never asked for this motion to unseal the IGG? When do you think? You think that Hitler was going to just seal this hearing? This is absurd. This is absolutely absurd. But if Ann Taylor and company does not file this motion to unseal, this is a motion to unseal these documents. And then she just basically was like, you know what, I'm going to cover our asses, and I'm going to also say that we want to make sure that this is an open hearing as well. Like, you know, and to me, it's like, what if Ann Taylor would have never asked for the documents at this point in time to be unsealed? Then was this Judge Hitler trying to throw some hardball back at her to say, like, we'll decide what, if any, you know what I mean? Because he totally hijacked and we don't even have a response from the state. He's like, I'm just going to do your job for you. Get the fuck out of here. All right. And I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you what we're dealing with here, guys. I went all the way back and I wanted to find this drug case because it has to do with what I'm doing tomorrow night. And it's amazing. And it's a case where I'm going to prove to you, all of you guys that are in that drug, it's all about drug world, you're going to love this. But go and pull up on July 15th, 2014, okay? Read verse State Appellate's brief. There you go. I'm giving it to you. Now, it's a drug case, all right? And in this lovely, this is about, so I'll just read it for you right here. An evidentiary hearing should have been granted. So just like how Sheldon Jeter Jr., I'm trying to get him at this evidentiary hearing, which we got. So he got it. But here you go. When you want to talk about prosecutorial misconduct, when you want to talk what truly goes on in Idaho, this is what goes on in Idaho. In this drug case, an evidentiary hearing should have been granted on the claim that there exists evidence of material facts not previously presented and heard that requires vacation of the sentence in the interest of justice. Title. Mr. Reed's pro se petition raised a claim of material facts not previously presented and heard that requires vacation of the conviction or sentence in the interest of justice. Specifically, Mr. Reed noted that there was evidence that Mr. Rawlings had recanted his story of Mr. Reed's confession, because he was this guy, Mr. Rawlins, whatever you want to call him. He was basically a jailhouse snitch used in this situation, okay? And so Mr. Reed's confession, the story of Mr. Reed's confession that Mr. Rawlings allegedly said, oh yeah, he confessed to me about all this stuff after the fact. So, and behavior while in jail, and further stated that he had been bribed. He was bribed for the statement by the prosecuting attorney. Evidence that the prosecutor gave Mr. Rawlins transcripts of other written recorded testimony to read prior to making his statement against Mr. Reed. And evidence that Mr. Rawlins' girlfriend told PSI investigator that Mr. Rawlins is a pathological liar. This is Kootenai County, baby. District 1, Idaho State Police, the same branch that is involved with the Idaho4 case. Okay? Idaho State Police It's called District 1. They are the people that were involved in helping, and as well as other districts, because Idaho State Police sent so many freaking people. Okay? But right here, I reached out to Mr. Rollins. I reached out to him. And I pulled his record to see if he had ever gotten in trouble again. And we're going to talk about that tomorrow. But the things that go on in Idaho. And that was for a sentencing evidence. It wasn't used during the court proceeding of the evidence phase and the guilt phase. It was used during and after the guilt phase to decide the after he took a plea deal. After this kid took a plea deal, then you use it during the sentencing phase, you sick fucks. So I'm trying to show everybody how Idaho does you dirty. Get this boy to take a plea deal, and then you're going to go ahead and bring in at the sentencing portion of it this guy who was randomly in jail in county for a couple days at the same time as homeboy here, right? And we're going to give him to say all this stuff. And it was used against him because he says the words, he knew things that only the perpetrator would know. And so how could he possibly know those things? And it definitely played, and it was provided with weight based on the way that the judge gave his sentence. He said those things. Unfortunately, it matters who you have as an attorney. The only time you need an attorney that's worth a damn, I'm telling you right now, is when you appeal. If you know your case, I'm sorry, but I think that you can be your own attorney. But during the appellate process is when you need an appellate attorney. So anyways, if you don't think Idaho is corrupt, because I would never, ever allow this to be in paperwork, okay? Who the hell is going to say this? This is 100% is how you get evidentiary hearings. I want to hear, so I reached out to him, and I want to know. I want to know. Did this happen? Because this prosecutor is still working today. And it's sick. Absolutely sick. Where's mainstream media? Let me tell you what Ashley Banfield wants to talk about. If Bryan Kohberger's team is taking a book or a page out of Lori Vallow's playbook, are you kidding me? Lori Vallow's fucking attorneys suck dick, and now she's pro se. They sucked when they were her attorneys, okay? For you to even compare that shit is ridiculous. This case is nothing like Lori Vallow's case. And for you to even, that is what propaganda is all about. It makes me sick that you're trying to compare this case to fucking Lori Vallow and what she did to her fucking children. Unfucking believable. It's sick. You know what? It isn't even comparable. But when News Nation wants to know why they only got 3,000 fucking views on that video, it's because it's so bad. Who like they didn't even click on it because it's so pathetic. You have content right in front of you. It's called this document right here. Let me do your research for you, News Nation. Very simple. Print off this page and print off this page, and you have your material. And then go find some drug case in Idaho, and you have a really good story. Sick. I never realized how bad drugs were in Idaho until I looked into this case. Idaho is a pipeline to Canada, and it's a pipeline to Mexico. And people are coming and going from California like you wouldn't believe to move to Idaho. I would never think in a million thousand years that I would ever be like, oh man, I just want to go move to Idaho. Why would people in California want to move to Idaho? We'll do some research on it. Bryan Kohberger and Ann Taylor are begging mainstream media to be fair, and they can't for the lives of them. He is constitutionally right now innocent, and nobody is protecting our constitutional rights. And it's disgusting.